Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Choi, Ms. Farber, Madam Secretary, Mr. Inspector General Mark Smith, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, members of the public. Today is Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Suthers, Shields, and Garcia are present, and we have a quorum. Mr. President?
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assistive listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of speakers will be: a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in a room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinion shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in several ways outlined on the agenda. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there's a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be the cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. While in the room, members of the audience must be seated. Standing is not permitted. At this time, we will move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Choi.
Thank you, and good morning, President Suthers, Commissioners, Inspector General Smith, City Attorney De La Guerra, and Ms. Farber. I'm going to start my comments today by discussing a multidisciplinary collision investigation team response that was in Newton Division. So on April 24th, approximately 0600 hours, officers from Newton Patrol Division received a radio call following a burglary for a motor vehicle suspect. The victim was tracking an electronic device that had been removed from the vehicle. The victim provided dispatch with a description of the vehicle, which was a gold Chevy Suburban, and a corresponding license plate. As officers arrived in the area of the call, they observed this vehicle. The officers attempted to conduct a traffic stop of the vehicle. However, the driver, identified as Jermaine Smith, quickly accelerated away and attempted to evade officers. Officers initiated a pursuit of this vehicle. The pursuit was approximately 1 minute in duration and traveled approximately 1 mile in distance. The pursuit concluded with Smith colliding with a male cyclist in the area of Hooper Avenue and 46th Street. Smith continued to drive northbound on Hooper, colliding with a parked vehicle, several moving vehicles, a telephone pole, which caused the vehicle to overturn onto its roof. Smith crawled out of the window and attempted to flee from officers on foot. He was ultimately apprehended by our officers. The bicyclist was identified as Jose Rojas, who was pronounced deceased at scene. Smith also sustained injuries during the traffic collision and was transported to the hospital, where he remains hospitalized. Officers recovered U.S. currency, the electronic device described by the victim of the radio call, and several identification cards belonging to different people within the vehicle being driven by Smith. Again, our MSIT, or multidisciplinary collision team, responded and is investigating this incident. We also had 2 categorical use of force incidents this week. So the first one on April 26th at approximately 11:45 hours, Northeast uniform officers responded to the 100 block of East Avenue 36 for a shooting investigation. When they arrived, they determined that the suspect, later identified as John Lopez, had shot a family member in the stomach following a dispute, and he was no longer at scene. Shortly after a crime broadcast was initiated, our air unit located Lopez riding his bicycle south on the 5 freeway. Northeast and Hollenbeck patrol units created a traffic break and followed Lopez as he traversed multiple lanes of traffic. Lopez eventually exited the freeway at Mission Road and then continued to ride in and out of traffic. After Lopez turned north on Daly Street, a Hollenbeck officer utilized the police vehicle to strike Lopez, which caused him to lose control of the bicycle and fall off onto the roadway. He was subsequently taken into custody without further incident. While at scene, Lopez complained of pain to his knees, and he was subsequently transported by Los Angeles Fire Department to the local hospital. He was treated for abrasions to his knees and cleared for booking. The victim of the shooting sustained non-life-threatening injuries and was held overnight at a local hospital for observation. No officers or other community members were injured during the incident, and a small caliber firearm was recovered from Lopez as the officers took him into custody. The second categorical incident occurred on April 27th at approximately 0009 hours. An individual reported an assault with a deadly weapon had occurred at 213 West 105th Street. The suspect, later identified as Dominique Langlois, was possibly armed with a knife and had assaulted a fellow resident with bodily force and refused to leave the location. Southeast officers responded to the location and contacted Langlois, who immediately became combative and retreated into his bedroom. Officers requested a backup and waited for additional resources. They continued to issue verbal commands to the suspect, who then complied and was handcuffed. After being handcuffed, Langlois became combative and spit at officers. One of the officers at scene placed a firm grip on the suspect's neck for approximately 2 seconds, which resulted in a categorical use of force incident. Based on our use of force policy, this contact to the neck is classified as a categorical use of force. This classification applies even if the person does not sustain any injuries or complain of any injuries. The suspect was subsequently taken into custody and transported by paramedics without injury to a local hospital. Hospital staff cleared him for booking, and he was transported to 77th Street Regional Jail, where he was booked for battery on a police officer. One officer was treated for an abrasion to his right middle finger sustained during the use of force. No other officers or community members were injured during this incident. I'd also like to discuss an incident that was in media this week at USC. So on April 24th, a group of pro-Palestinian protesters gathered on the campus of the University of Southern California. This demonstration was initially being handled by the USC Department of Public Safety. As a number of protesters grew, the Department of Public Safety attempted to clear the crowd from the area. The crowd became agitated, and the DPS generated a help call and requested mutual assistance from the Los Angeles Police Department. USC DPS ordered all protesters to leave the campus or they would be arrested for trespass. After allowing a reasonable amount of time for the protesters to leave the area, a group of approximately 93 people remained and refused to leave. USC DPS directed private persons' arrests of the 93 remaining protesters. LAPD facilitated the arrests and processed the individuals at 77th Regional Jail Facility and Metropolitan Detention Facility. During the crowd movement, there was one deployment of 40 millimeter, which did not contact anyone, and another reportable use of force when a baton push technique was utilized during the crowd movement. Both incidents were documented as level 3 use of forces. Moving on to crime, for the week ending April 27th, citywide crime compared to 2023, violent crime citywide is down 0.3%, property crime is down 3.7%, and overall Part 1 crime down is 3%. We still have challenges in areas of violent crime and homicides and robberies. So our homicides have been trending down since the week ending 3/16/24. So in the past 7 weeks, our year-to-date increases in homicides continue to decrease from a high of 30.8% down to a range of 4.2%. We're currently +4 in homicides year over year. Our victim shot analysis, we looked at victim shot continued to trend in a downward direction. So from 3/2/24, the past 9 weeks, year-to-date increases in victim shot have decreased from an increase of 14.7%. We're now at an overall decrease of 9.8%. Our robbery analysis, in the past 6 weeks, total robberies have fluctuated in the range of an increase of 12.4% to 8.2%. Currently, we're at an increase year-to-date of 10.9% compared to 2023. Where we're seeing continued decreases is where we're focusing our efforts. Our robberies with firearms, they've been trending down since the week ending 3/9/24. So the past 8 weeks, year-to-date increases for robberies with the firearm have continued to decrease from a high of 12% down to 1.8%. And robberies with firearms make up a total of about 26% of our total robberies year-to-date. In our property crime, our burglaries have been trending down since week ending 3/2/24. They decreased from a high of an increase of 4.3% down to 0.2%. We're currently this week standing at an increase in burglaries of 0.9%. Our year-to-date 24 commercial burglaries are down 1.2% compared to 23. And our residential burglaries year-to-date are up 2.6% compared to 2023. Our motor vehicle theft crimes have been trending down since week ending 3/2/24. We went down from 9.6% down to 5%. Currently, we're standing at 6.1% increase for motor vehicle thefts. We're still seeing the same trends of Kias, Chevys, and Hyundais being the top stolen vehicle. This increase in our stolen vehicles year over year has really been driven by Operations Valley Bureau, where we're seeing a 28% increase overall in our vehicles citywide in that area. Our personal strength as of April 29th, 2024, we have increased from my last report. We're now at 8,852 sworn personnel. Our civilian staffing is at 2,640, and our reserve officers remain at 443. And that ends my report.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Kalanche?
Sure, thank you. Chief, quick question around some of the tactical alerts as a result of the different universities having the demonstrations on campus. I know there's more than just one, there's a few. So I'm wondering, how does that impact our deployment? What is the cost? Does that impact our budget? I'm just wondering what that does for us. I mean, we don't necessarily have to respond because it's on campus, but how has that been affecting our deployment? That's one question.
So you're talking about the 2 tactical alerts that happened Wednesday and Saturday. So those tactical alerts were declared in order for us to garner enough resources to respond to a request for assistance by college police. When there is a public safety issue or criminal behavior happening, I know you say we are not going to respond, but the primary goal here is to maintain public safety, and that's when we will respond. If it's just code of conduct violations or administrative violations, then we won't respond. So if there's criminal behavior, in this case on Wednesday, it was a criminal trespass that we had to respond to, and we did. Saturdays, we responded to potential vandalism and also criminal trespass. At the end of the day, that plan was not implemented by the university, and there was not a need for us, and we went back into patrol. So what happens at a tactical alert is to free up resources. Really, that's what that's about, so we can garner the resources. Once a tactical alert is declared, non-emergency calls are not handled for that duration. And that's the impact that I think that you're referring to.
Oh, okay.
The cost related to it, quite simply, is depending on how many resources are needed and how long they're used, and that varies. It could be, I don't know what the costs were on these two.
But does it keep officers on overtime or it's just, yeah?
It depends on the time
Time of the day.
when they're called and what shift they're on.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to understand like how all of that impacts our deployment and our ability to respond to needs. But this is
All emergency calls are still handled.
Okay, that's helpful. If I may, President Sellers, I actually have two, not necessarily questions, but just comments or announcements. One was, thank you, Chief, for attending the Senior Lead Summit we had on Friday. We had 300 senior leads participate. This is our second one that the commission and the department puts together. I just wanted to share some of the feedback or the work that was done there. So we had the senior lead officers think about like how they're working with the community, and how they can improve how they work with the community in order to facilitate the community leading efforts versus community safety efforts being led by police. And some of the, I want to read about some of the activities we did. So one of the groups basically said like their mission and vision is to empower community members to be their own advocate and reach out to city entities to create change. We're trying to move away from relying on police for service delivery and things like that. Be honest with community members, don't promise what can't be delivered. Advocate for youth programs, include virtual ride-alongs through social media, recruitment. Be realistic on addressing issues, work with community to utilize resources and not depend on senior leads. Foot beats, victim follow-up. They felt like returning when, to talk to victims really builds a lot of trust. Community cleanups, follow through with what you say, being present in the basic car, attend community meetings, listen to concerns, and so on and so on. So the goal was for senior leads to start developing different ways of working with community instead of just responding to concerns, working to empower community to solve problems. So moving away from police is going to come and solve all your problems to we are a resource to community, and there's a lot of other city entities that we should be reaching out to. I just want to thank the public engagement group, Commander Espinoza, who really worked to ensure a successful event, and all her team and putting this together. I mean, from having to set up the night before and having to stay after the event to clean up. This is a first step towards building more capacity internally and leading to best practices, community engagement best practices for the department, which are part of our after action report. And who better than the senior leads that are out there and are the public face of the department. So I just want to thank you for your support on this, and hope to have follow up with these officers. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and Commissioner Garcia could also chime in, we had our first Chief of Police Community Outreach Forum last Thursday. It was all Spanish, which was really cool that we had our first one in Spanish. It was virtual. We organized it in conjunction with Councilwoman Eunice Hernandez. They helped us and get the word out. We had pretty good participation, and in a nutshell, what we heard was wanting the chief of police to be the next chief of police to be supportive of community engagement and programs such as diversion and reentry programs to continue to build those partnerships with the organizations that are out there working with, these high-risk populations. So that was our first, and I know that we have a schedule that we'll probably discuss later, but I just wanted to thank the staff and the councilwoman that helped to put that together. That was it. I don't know if Commissioner Garcia wanted to add to that.
Sure, thank you. So, yeah, it was a great convening of folks. Like Commissioner Clark just said, it's in Spanish, and so we're trying our best to ensure that we reach out to diverse populations and not just go through kind of typical traditional methods. And so we're going to try our best to get into the communities and get folks' voices and opinions heard and relate to us, and for them to complete surveys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Calanche. And Commissioner Garcia, you can continue. Any comments or questions?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay. Vice President Shields.
Thank you, President Suthers. Chief, I had a couple of questions about some of the items that you discussed, including the one instance where the police vehicle was used to kind of stop a fleeing suspect. Can you talk a little bit about what the policy of the department is on using a vehicle in such a manner?
Sure. So if a vehicle is intentionally used to strike or strike a person, then that's considered lethal force. It's not an accident when the officer says, no, I intentionally put my vehicle in this position to stop this suspect from fleeing. We consider that, our department considers that application of that tool to be a lethal force application, and that's why it turns into a categorical. That's different than if an officer was driving and became involved in a traffic collision and somebody got injured. That would not be considered a use of force application. This was an intentional application, and that's why it's categorical use of force.
Thank you. And the commission will review that instance under the use of force policy and determine whether or not that was in policy or not. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. There was an additional, in addition to the collision, I think that you mentioned from earlier in the month, where someone who was fleeing from police struck a bicyclist. There was an incident, I think yesterday, that also involved a police officer striking a pedestrian. Are those both under investigation? And will the department be looking at, again, providing more input or guidance to police officers as to how they're supposed to be driving through intersections, et cetera?
Yeah, so the incident that I just discussed today, the one that was the Chevy Suburban, that is under review. Our MSIT team is investigating that. That will be adjudicated once that investigation is done. It was a pursuit. It was 1 minute long, 1 mile in distance. And then the one that happened yesterday is currently fresh in the investigation, so I don't want to comment. I'll comment more about it next week. But that too is also a MSIT response, so there will be a thorough, in-depth investigation prior to the adjudication.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Calanche for all the work you're doing with the senior leads. And just follow up on one program, the victim follow-up that occurs when we have those incidents. We have a formalized program. Is there a way to make that program more known to people, get it out there, make them understand that those kinds of resources are available?
I'm sorry, for which incident you're
The
referring to?
victim follow-up program that Commissioner Calanche was talking about.
Oh, for the senior leads?
Yes.
So the Victims Assistance Program is either at the DA's or the CA's office, and we refer our detectives, as they work with our victims, always refer them. Our senior lead officers are really a force multiplier mechanism to get the word out there, and not just the victims program, but all the programs that we have, make it known to all the communities that they're contacting. And it's really to educate and empower our community members to know what programs are out there, so they don't always rely on law enforcement. They can go to those resources themselves, and that's the effort.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Secretary, we'll move on to item number 2, public comment. Please call the first speaker.
Okay, up first, we have Andrew Graebner.
Okay, starting off with the Chiefs report. Chiefs report should be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes at every meeting, unless you're going to give us more time to speak. You shouldn't cut anyone off, regardless of how long the chief takes. You need to make sure everyone is able to speak. A couple concerns about the Chiefs report. I saw, apparently now, you mentioned the cops are now running people over with their vehicles. That doesn't sound good. Running people, like I thought you all cared about trying to stop traffic collision. Oh, of course, apparently you claimed it wasn't a traffic collision because an officer collided with a civilian, apparently. So apparently when an officer collides with a civilian, it's not actually a traffic collision, according to you. Just trying to play these weird mind games with everyone. I noticed there were a little bit of talk about the LAPD's response to USC. I'm not sure why it wasn't disclosed during all of that Errol Southers actually works at USC and was possibly involved with some of the ordering of trying to call police out to that event and everything. So why wasn't that disclosed during all that talking? Because, I mean, is Errol Southers going to recuse himself from anything related to USC? If you ever discuss any incidents that happened from it, is Southers going to recuse himself since he likely has some involvement on the USC side? That's questions that might want to be addressed at some point here before the body. But yeah, the LAPD's response to everything at USC ordered by Errol Southers and his friends at USC was really out of control and really bad, violent, and the LAPD shouldn't have done that. Let's see, we do have a couple agenda items on the consent agenda. Let's see, we have the mayor wants to go on a vacation again out to Vancouver, out of Canada. Go rack up some more money there for some weird meeting. We have more training money. It's just funneling more money to the cops so that you can, and not changing anything, just, training doesn't seem to solve any issues from what I can tell, so I don't know why we're draining this money on that. But yeah, you all need to get, it just seems like you're more corruption, more violence. Southers is trying to cut people off repeatedly. That's how I took last week off. Yeah.
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report, agenda items, and public comment, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, first, I do appreciate Chief Choi's report. It's too bad everybody doesn't understand the situations that can be brought up. On agenda items 3C, I totally support that. I also feel, again, repeatedly like a broken record, I guess, that the new chief needs to come from within the department. If we are known as one of the #1 agencies in the nation, then there's no reason why the new chief can't come from within the department. They know the policies, procedures. Most of them that are interested have 25 to 32 years on the job. That looks like a lot of good experience to me. And with that, I hope everyone stays healthy and safe. I thank you very much, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, next we have Donald Harlan.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I wanted to start with the problems at the colleges. USC and UCLA are my properties. The results of the problems at USC and USC and UCLA is all those law enforcement, LAPD, police commissioners, sheriffs, who have carved themselves a fraud out of the colleges, developing property or trying to empower others for things they don't have powers for. And quite a few people working in the city, even on the police commission, have caused quite a bit of damage at the colleges. And they're partly responsible for what's going on there. And they're to all have their employment terminated in the city, out of law enforcement completely. I know that you can only maybe fire 1,000 police officers at a time, but that might be a big one and might include yourselves. It came to my attention about the training that the Los Angeles Police Department had maybe been, or the sheriffs have been murdering people in the jails or something like that was going on. That's normal when somebody new arrives to lead the law enforcement. They go through that for a while. Also, you should be reminded that you're not to be taking orders from Karen Bass. Karen Bass can't tell you to do anything. For the police chief, concerning Canada, since you started working in LAPD, you might have noticed that I have purchased quite a bit of Canada, and I'm a majority landowner in Canada now. And when you go back there, you might have to explain the 1990s to them about why Donald didn't show up and help the people over there in Canada and my territories and bring them the money and resources they need. That when you came here to Los Angeles, you kind of blew all that out. And I want to remind you guys that the county and the city has no legal binding for the 1990s, that they blew that out. Their servers sent the documents everywhere except to the people they were supposed to go to, and they have no legal binding for the 1990s either. And many of you joined law enforcement here in the city around that time, and you should explain to those people in Canada about what happened there. I'm sure they're interested to know.
Next, we have Philip Tabby.
Good morning, all items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
You know, I'm curious who's really running the show. It does not seem like interim Chief Choi is making moral decisions to overturn any of the items former Chief Moore made horrible judgments on. It does feel like Moore is pulling the strings somehow as he siphons another $80,000 from the city as he sips on his whiskey in Tennessee. I really called that one. On this contract that started in March, Moore signed it on April 8th, and this commission approved it last week. It appears he was working off contract. Where are his logs that he is supposed to submit? Why do these commission meetings rarely talk about what is really going on crime related in our city? The chief's report is always a watered down version of the scope of things, what's really going on. I feel that some promotions that Moore made put some unqualified people in positions they should not be in or were not ready for. One example is loose hands Marco Lozano, the worst captain Foothill has ever seen from a community perspective. This command staff officer has inappropriately put his hands on a community member. He's made a CPAB member cry at a meeting. He's lied to the community on multiple occasions. He curses at community members out of his window in uniform. He fired me with no reason given in the lobby of Foothill. Lozano lies with Deputy Chief Hamilton by his side, doing the same. Instead of punishing Lozano, he gets an award and only a paper penalty. The way this department adjudicates things makes me sick. It's one reason why morale is at an all-time low in the department. It's one reason why people do not trust this department. That should be very concerning coming from a person who supports our LAPD, our officers, and law enforcement. Has Internal Affairs began its investigation on Hamilton yet? Lobbying to get his wife a promotion, calling Foothill and West Valley captains and Deputy Chief Ruby Flores? It's not fair for others that applied for these positions to have to compete against a deputy chief's phone call. I made the phone call to IA. This needs to be looked into. Please also look into the CPABs and all community relations offices. Do citizens have access to the department and all community related meetings? I found out Mission CPAB meets at 1 p.m. How is that meeting outreaching our communities? Sounds more like an afternoon senior club. I believe an audit on all community relation offices should be conducted. Please outreach the community more during these difficult times. God bless the LAPD.
Okay, next we have Megan.
I want to join the USC faculty members who are calling for Earl's resignation due to LAPD violence against their students, peacefully protesting a genocide against the Palestinians. This genocide is being committed by the Israeli Defense Force, who Errol has spoken about just glowingly, and particular admiration of their use of profiling. It seems like that admiration for the IDF figured into your decision to censor the USC valedictorian who publicly criticized Israel, which tracks because that's been your go-to response lately for criticism, which hits a little too close to home. It's been censorship. We witnessed that 2 weeks ago at the Community Police Commission meeting when you ended the public comment of a speaker who brought up your role in censoring that USC valedictorian. You actually ended up ejecting 3 speakers from that meeting, all Black men, all outspoken critics of the LAPD. I just want to remind you, Errol, as long as you sit on this commission, your decisions in all spheres are very on topic, and if you don't like it, you are welcome to quit. We would actually like that very much. Just no questions from anybody about protecting the safety and rights of students and the free speech and the rights of students to peacefully protest on their campus? None? Nothing? Just whether or not the protests would affect LAPD's ability to brutalize the rest of the city. Don't want to let that one person shot a week average fall down, would we? Troy, you said that the primary goal is to maintain public safety. I mean, every time police show up to a peaceful protest, whether it's here or New York or Atlanta or St. Louis, mayhem and brutality ensues. Except, of course, when that protest is being conducted by white supremacists. Thank you.
Next we have Steve Riley. Steve Riley, you're on.
Yes, thank you. All lives matter. All lives matter. And last week in the chief's report, a life that was taken was not mentioned. And I'm going to mention it. I asked for a moment of silence, not knowing the name or the circumstances of who I was asking for a moment of silence for. And that name is Myrna Souza. Myrna Souza. M-I-R-N-A-S-O-Z-A. Everybody should remember that name. A woman from Nicaragua who came to America looking for the American dream, was working at a hamburger place in San Fernando Valley, the overnight shift, working security, a 66-year-old woman. On a commute home, she encountered a savage suspect that took her life, stabbed her to death. She was unarmed. Maybe if she had been armed, she could have saved her own life. It is a tragedy that could have been prevented. A savage suspect criminal that should have been in jail because he was most recently arrested in February of this year. The criminal injustice system failed her. There is blood on the hands of the system. Myrna Souza is dead. I'm angry I'm angry that, for one, let's say she had survived. Unfortunately, she did not. This story would probably never have been reported. A career criminal with a history of committing the same crimes in that particular area was walking the street. Our district attorney's office, our city attorney's office do not prosecute crimes to the fullest extent of the law. They're not doing their job. And because they're not doing their job, when the LAPD makes arrests, these people are coming back out and walking among us. I'm going to quote someone, LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger, who's on the MTA board. Our agency has grappled with a very real and unacceptable level of violence, illicit drug use, sales, and overdoses, and a blatant disregard for the law, a code of conduct, and quite frankly, basic human decency. Have you ridden the subways lately? The critics and some of the people that you hear here say law enforcement is heavy-handed and unfairly targets people of color, particularly Black men and homeless people. Let's look at the demographics of crime. And when we talk about that meeting that was at Bishop Alemany School, the so-called 3 Black men that were asked to leave were speaking beyond their time. It wasn't because they were Black, okay? Let's stop playing the race card and let's talk about public safety. Thank you for going to the SLO conference. All the police commissioners should have been there, not just one. God bless.
Next, we have Jonathan Foster.
Hello, Jonathan Foster, starting with this one.
You don't even care about other women that got raped.
Hearing some sexist comments or
So first I'd like to talk about the crooked, satanic, racist whore Gavin Newsom. Same as Suicide Joe, the president. The LAPD, when they have to take care of the president when he comes here. Same as Chuck Schumer, California Assembly Luis Alejo, Monica Rodriguez, Kevin Leon, big guys like Alex Padilla and Xavier Bosser, who was on staff or elected when Jamil Shaw Jr. was shot in the face. And all of these people helped supply the fentanyl that has killed several high school kids here. Continuing with that, commenting on the April 16th Catholic Church meeting, I've noticed at the LAPD that this is the power center and that the city hall is the obelisk, right? And the LAPD's been to Washington, D.C. for meetings. And there's the White House, and then there's the Washington Monument that's the obelisk. And this is the same thing that's at the City Square Mile in London, where the bank is the power center and there's the obelisk. And this is the same thing at the Catholic Church, where the Pope, who I call the Pope, is got his office next, and there's the obelisk out there. It's the same thing right here. It's all run by Rome, Italy. And to see the Latino Catholic Bible is in Latin. See, these people are Latinized. That's why they're called Latinos. And they're used basically as slaves, right? And they have an undocumented army that LAPD has to deal with called gangs. And they don't have to train them or pay them. They just told them, they have these people thinking that the land is theirs, and they go in killing. On their own. No one has to prosecute. No one can prosecute the Catholic Church for this. You would be assassinated, killed, or rubbed out. Ask JFK. DACA in California is its own government. It's not the USA. I yell at them too. I call Gavin Newsom all the time. I called a Luis Alejo. You know, his secretary laughed at me. I want to talk about the YouTube LAPD commission site on YouTube. You know, these Jews at YouTube are making money on murder. They make money on this police commission's website. They're making money off of this because they're running commercials. Right. Yep, pause for Mirna Sosa. Yep, that's what I put down here. And there were, all right, last bit. 4 officers were killed. Do you know why? Because you didn't listen to me. I gave a gentle suggestion. Also, these 4 officers did not do the right thing, and they lost their lives because they didn't listen to the chief of police, Jonathan Foster. That's why they died. No one's listening to me.
Next, we have Josie. Josie, you're on.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All.
Okay, 3 minutes.
All I want to say is I thank you for meeting. I think it's to provide this meeting for the community. I appreciate all the information that you give to us. I appreciate all the police officers. I think without you, this will be a nightmare of a community. Our community has been the safest community since our SLOs have been working with us. I appreciate our officers. They are daily talking to us about what will be the best thing to do to keep our community safe. I also appreciate the fact that they're open to all suggestions to work with difficult people, the people that are not, let's say, within the law. And it's not your problem. It's not your fault. It's not the LAPD fault that you're not able to prosecute them. As all these legislations, is the government who is tying in your hands, our hands, so criminals will take advantage of the community and go free within seconds. And what are we to do? To complain to you? How dare us? Complain to the right people. Don't put people in charge in government when they are creating all this animosity within the police department, the community, and the criminals. Get the laws back in the books so we can take care of business and our police officers can do their jobs. They cannot do their jobs if you keep on voting people in that are not helping us. I love the police department. I thank you. I thank you for everything that you do for us. That's it.
Next, we have Matios Kedan.
My name is Matios Kidana with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. I just want to start off by saying that the content of my public comment relates to the Commission's ability to hold public comment, so Southers, please practice some self-restraint and try not to interrupt me. Now, some of you may believe that at the very least pretend that you actually provide oversight for the LAPD, but it's our analysis at the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition that this commission is a function of counterinsurgency. And counterinsurgency is a slew of tactics that come into play to maintain the legitimacy of this police department so as to not avoid violent coercion. And violent coercion is avoided not because it's violent, but because it's resource intensive. This kind of touches on the question Kalanche was asking about response to USC in times of protest. And what we saw 2 weeks ago at the Board of Police Commissioners when 3 black men were censored and ejected was violent coercion that was done in response to this commission's legitimacy being threatened. And funny enough, what was brought up, as other speakers have mentioned, to kind of warrant this violent coercion was the censorship of a student, Asna Tabasom, by Southers at USC. And even in discussing Southers' role at USC, his position is Associate Senior Vice President of Safety and Risk Assurance, whose function is to oversee USC's campus police and collaboration with LAPD. And so there's kind of no speculation as to whether or not Southers played a role in this deployment of LAPD officers to attack student protesters. It's literally his job within the school to coordinate that kind of response. And so this legitimacy is threatened here, not only to the people who regularly kind of show up and talk down to this commission, but also to the broader public, right? We've seen kind of this wildfire of uprisings among students in different encampments. That can be directly tied, I think, to Southers' censorship of one student. We've seen 16 USC faculty members demanding your resignation, as another person brought up. And just to bring up, this is rooted in your Zionism and your defense of Zionism, right? And so you wrote in a 2011 article in the Jerusalem Post, you lamented the U.S.'s aversion to what you call the P word, that's profiling, and celebrates so-called Israel's enthusiasm for racial profiling. And we see that racial profiling play out in who's being censored, in the case of this valedictorian, and who's being ejected from meetings, right? And so just kind of naming that, this has been a through line in your career, in your quote unquote research, if you can call it that. But even in an article you published under USC Create, you co-authored listing radicalization characteristics. You name frustration or anger toward the US. You name strongly identified with Muslims perceived as being victimized, in quotes, Palestinians. You named adopt dress, grooming, or conduct incredibly indicative of Muslim identity. You're Islamophobic. You're racist. You're anti-black. Your work has often supported that. It's clear. It's apparent.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael.
Good morning. All items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
So let's say the name again, Myrna Souza. Whenever you see a metro go by, remember her name. I doubt any of you board members are riding those metros, right? Yeah. They're so safe, right? If your PowerPoint says crime's down, so I guess it's down, right? So good luck with that one. The month of June is dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It's fast approaching. You'll be reminded of it when you drive down Broadway past Cathedral High School. Just look up. Diversity. I want to talk about diversity. Diversity applies only to ideas, never to skin color and race. When it applies to skin color and race like it currently does, you know you're living in a Marxist society, which we do because of our government is not moral. Government was designed for a moral people. Look around. The government's not moral, and not many of the people are. It's been exactly 3 years, 10 months, and 10 days since the summer of terrorism in Los Angeles. On June 20th, 2020, when the Junipero Serra statue was torn down by a fake indigenous group of terrorists and another terrorist group that's actually a Democrat militia, which is BLM. They tore it down, and apparently the LAPD was on a nap or something, or maybe a coffee break. I think they missed the whole thing. I mean, it was live on YouTube on multiple channels. I don't know what happened there. Maybe the crack team wasn't really paying attention, or they were doing something else. I don't know. Maybe they were bending their knee to BLM, like Chief Moore loves to do. Another question I have for the LAPD commission here is there an office of the LAPD that deals with election fraud? Election fraud seems to be a big problem in LA. It certainly appears to me whenever we get all of the votes go towards Gavin Newsom. I mean, how is that possible? I know plenty of people that live in this state that are completely opposed to him. It doesn't make any sense how Gavin Newsom keeps getting put back in place. But I'm sure you guys all love him. I mean, you're all Democrats, right? Such a diverse board. Let's consider, maybe you guys should all start riding the metro. To go back to that, why don't you guys all start riding it? And then you can start telling us about how crime is low. When you got to deal with gangbangers, throwing signs at you when you're on the train, calling you cop, which I've had done to me a few times. Not a cop. Just enjoy the fruits of Los Angeles, since you guys are so into it. You sit there on your ivory tower here, the board members, in your cushy little positions. Well, good for you. I mean, hop on the blue line once in a while, and start smelling like the sheep. Have a good day. I'm done.
Next, we have Jason Reedy.
Yes. How nice of Errol to show his face this week. It's been quite the last 2 weeks for you, Lil Gregory, and one thing has continued to become clearer and clearer. You can't stop finding ways to target and harm our youth. Why did you almost immediately make the decision to crack down on the USC Gaza Solidarity encampment? Errol, the supposed expert in school violence prevention, allowed LAPD and USC school police to violently descend on that camp. You are the homegrown violent extremist that you always talk about. Your allegiance to Israel, a genocidal state who has martyred over 15,000 children, makes sense given your involvement in that infamous PAL program, the one that you refuse to speak about. Now, Errol, we know you made the decision to have LA Metro, who this department toots as its most elite division, arrest, criminalize, and harass USC students. The same USC students, some of whom you've actually taught, have seen the death and destruction of Israel. They've seen hundreds of schools and universities bombed and completely flattened in Gaza. They've seen Palestinian students and teachers murdered, displayed all over their social media, and they decided they could no longer sit by as their school continued to be an active participant in that genocide. And your response was repression. All right? That decision to cancel Asna's speech isn't looking too good right now, Errol, is it? Now, in case that wannabe Sammy Sosa ever wants to claim Israel is not a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of this commission, Errol has taught in Israel for the last 18 years. So that factors into his decision-making on this council, on this commission. LAPD has exchanged tactics with Israel, has trained with Israel. You have a long history with Israel, correct? Yes, you do. And so, and LAPD has criminalized protests around Palestine, as they did on campus, that Errol is tasked with quote-unquote leading safety with. So this is a relevant topic to this commission. What Errol fears is an educated public. His fear is shared by the LAPD and the likes. You hate that youth on your campus now have a concrete understanding on the purpose that police serve. Your doctorate wasn't really in policy, planning, and development. It was in harm, manipulation, and propaganda. And Errol, where did that Twitter account go? You really feeling that heat? I mean, it's not just some organizers like me. It's not like organizations like the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, BLM, that are calling you out. We've got Dr. Jody Armour, the most respected black man on USC's campus, calling you out for your overseer pedigree. Now, just like you withdrew your nomination from being the head of TSA because you lied about stalking your ex-wife, that time has come for you to resign from the commission and your position as Vice President of Safety and Risk Assurance at USC. Errol, again, you were so occupied with searching your ex-wife's boyfriend on the FBI database that you let Eric Oler prey on all those innocent children. And again, a firm grip on the neck is a choke. Don't use soft terms for your brutalization. Fuck you, Errol Southers.
Next, we have caller ending 2988. Caller ending 2988, you're on.
Ma'am, this is your first warning. If you do not stop talking, you will be ejected from this room. Okay, that is it. Ma'am, please leave the room.
Hello? Is it my turn?
Ma'am, you can keep walking.
Caller 2988, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them?
Okay, 3 minutes.
Well, I want a process in place where the community can complain about First Amendment permits. Because right now, nobody can tell me anything that in any department that there's any process in place to complain about First Amendment permits. I do not want Divine Savior Catholic Church in Cypress Park doing their First Amendment parade in front of my house, stopping there on purpose and taunting me. This is outrageous. And I can complain, nobody listens. Nobody can tell me if there's a complaint process in place. There's a church that's taken me to court 2 times. It was bogus. 2 times they lost. This is cruel. And they just want to stop in front of my house and taunt me that, oh, hey, look what we can do. You know, childish behavior. I'm asking for them not to come in front of my house. I'm down the street. They can go on the main street on Cypress. They don't need to come down my little street. And there's no process in place. So I'd like Lieutenant Moffitt to call me on that, because that's not appropriate. That's not right what they do. And they know that they falsely accused me of a crime, which was lies, and they lost. What else can they do to me? I've had several hate crimes against me, vandalizing my car a few times, my neighbor who kidnapped my dog. But nobody cares when you're a white person. Nobody cares about hate crimes. The LAPD is doing nothing to protect me, even though that they know the issues and all the crimes that have been committed against me. Nobody's done nothing to protect me and my family. My 4 tires are just slashed. This isn't the first time that they vandalized my cars. They tell me don't walk on their sidewalk. I mean, it's mostly Hispanic community, and nobody's doing anything about a hate crime against me and my family. Nobody. Nobody says anything. Nobody does anything. been to court twice taken to court bogus by the Catholic Church twice. And what more can happen to me? And there ain't nobody doing nothing to protect me. I want something in place that they're not going to come in front of my house and do their little parade and their little dance and flaunt it in front of me. This is how the Catholic Church works. They don't give a damn about anybody, and they know have issues with them, but they'll still come by, and nobody tells me that they're coming, and there's no process to tell me that they're coming or they applied for a permit or anything. No notice whatsoever. They just pop up. You know it? Is this the way that it works? I want Lieutenant Moffett to call me and tell me, is this how it works? That I don't have a voice? That it's okay if they commit hate crimes? If my neighborhood commits hate crimes against me and no.
Okay, next we have Raul Macias. Okay, Sylvia Zabronsky.
Thanks for holding this meeting. Nice to be here. I just had some questions. Am I allowed? Do you agree it is a crime to impersonate a medical doctor? Are you?
Ma'am, during public comment, it's your opportunity to address the commission.
Do you agree or disagree? Do you agree, disagree? Do you agree? He's not allowed to respond, or nobody's allowed to respond?
Ma'am, this
They
is,
don't have to
this is,
Okay, well, I did speak to a federal FBI undisclosed agent yesterday, 12/15/18. He did confirm it's illegal. He did confirm it's illegal, it's a crime to lie to the police. These things have been confirmed, but the LAPD refused, and I have a recording of a medical doctor impersonating. I got sick, and the LAPD refused to file a police report. So I came here to speak to you to say, please, can I have a police report? Because they just tell me to go to civil.
I'm going to ask you to talk to this detective here, and he'll handle
I
it.
appreciate that.
Sure.
And I don't think it's nice for anybody to be yelling here and saying F you. Yes, you do have freedom of speech, but it's just not very nice. And then I have a minute left. I would like to know, what is United States government doing to prevent homicides in the first place? We have too many prisons. We don't have enough jobs. There's too much of a high incarceration rate. When you go to jail, there's about a 70% chance you go right back in. We're not safe. And I would like to know, who do I address this to? Is this the President of the United States? Is this the Department of Defense? That's what I would like to know. What is the United States government doing to prevent homicides? And what are they doing to prevent police brutality? I have been arrested for parking in a handicapped parking space. My father was arrested for refusal to sign. My mother was arrested for touching the police officer. Please don't arrest my husband. Oh, handcuffed.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President, that was our final speaker.
The top came off. Okay.
That was our final speaker, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, consent agenda items. Are there any comments or questions from the fellow commissioners on any of the consent agenda items 3A through C? Mr. Conte? No? Garcia? No? Then I move that we approve the I move that we approve the department's reports for items 3A, 3B, and 3C. Is there a second? Actually, that recommendation, so. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carried. The commission will now recess into closed session. Thank you.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss agenda item 4A1 in accordance with Government Code 54957.
The commission has completed its closed session. We'll have a report from the executive director. Ms. Farber?
At the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners on April 30th, 2024, during the closed session, the board made the following findings by a 4-0 vote. Leary, number 26-23, for tactics, tactical debrief, 1, police officer 3, 3, police officer 2s. For drawing, exhibiting, in policy, no further action, 1, police officer 3, 2, police officer 2s. For less lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 2 police officer 2s, 1 police officer 1. Also, the board made the following findings by a 3-0 vote for 3-1 vote. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 police officer 1.
Thank you. With that, I would move that today's meeting be adjourned. Is there a second?
I second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.